China was once the world's most powerful and enduring empire, a civilization that had stood for centuries with unmatched culture, wealth, and stability. Yet by the early 20th century, the Qing Dynasty, the last imperial dynasty of China, collapsed under the weight of internal turmoil, foreign aggression, and a rapidly changing world. How could an empire that had ruled millions for over 200 years fall so suddenly? Why did the dynastic system, which had survived centuries of challenges, fail in a modernizing world? And how did this collapse reshape China and the wider world? In this video, we are going to discuss all these things, so let's start. The Qing Dynasty, founded in 1644 by the Mongols, had built an empire that stretched from Mongolia to Vietnam, Korea to Tibet, for centuries. It maintained control through a combination of military strength, bureaucracy, and Confucian ideology, yet by the 19th century, cracks were appearing. Corruption had spread through the imperial court, the bureaucracy was bloated and inefficient, and peasants struggled under heavy taxation and famine. The dynasty was ruling a massive empire, but its ability to respond to internal crises was weakening. At the same time, China faced unprecedented external pressure. Western powers, fueled by industrialization and imperial ambition, sought access to China's vast markets and resources. The Opium Wars in the mid-19th century were a turning point. Britain forced the king to legalize opium trade, cede territory like Hong Kong, and open treaty ports to foreign merchants. These humiliations exposed the dynasty as military weakness and undermined its legitimacy in the eyes of the Chinese people. It became clear that the empire could no longer protect its sovereignty against foreign powers. Internal rebellions compounded these problems. The Taiping Rebellion, which began in 1850, lasted over a decade and caused the deaths of millions, led by Hong Xiuquan, who claimed to be the younger brother of Jesus. The rebellion sought to overthrow the king and radically transform Chinese society. Although eventually suppressed, it devastated large regions of the empire, destroyed infrastructure, and drained the government's resources. Other uprisings, including the Nine Rebellion and later, the Boxer Rebellion, revealed widespread discontent and weakened the state further. The 19th century also brought rapid technological and cultural changes globally. While Europe and Japan modernized armies, economies, and governments, China struggled to keep pace. Attempts at reform, such as the self-strengthening movement, aimed to modernize the military and industry while preserving Confucian traditions, but they were inconsistent, resisted by conservative officials, and undermined by foreign interference. Japan's victory over China in the First Sino-Japanese War of 1894 to 1895 shocked the nation, humiliating the king and signaling to the world that China's traditional structures were no longer sufficient. By the early 20th century, revolutionary movements were growing stronger. Sun Yat-sen and the Chinese Revolutionary Alliance promoted ideas of nationalism, democracy, and republicanism. Young intellectuals and reformers argued that the Qing dynasty was outdated, corrupt, and incapable of leading China into a modern era. Widespread discontent among peasants, soldiers, and students fueled uprisings across the country. In 1911, the Wuchang Uprising ignited the Xinhai Revolution. Provinces across China declared independence from the king, and the imperial court had no choice but to negotiate. By early 1912, the last emperor, Pui, abdicated the throne, bringing an end to over 2,000 years of imperial rule. The Republic of China was established, marking the transition from dynastic rule to a modern state, but also plunging the country into political fragmentation, warlordism, and decades of instability. The fall of the Qing dynasty was not just the collapse of a government, it was the end of an era. The dynasty had preserved China's culture, expanded its territories, China struggled with foreign influence, internal divisions, and civil wars in the decades that followed. The failure to modernize effectively fueled the rise of new political movements, including nationalism, communism, and reformist ideologies that sought to rebuild China into a strong, unified state. Today, the story of the Qing Dynasty's collapse offers lessons about leadership, adaptability, and the consequences of failing to evolve with global change. Ultimately, the fall of the Qing Dynasty shows how even the most enduring empires can unravel when internal weakness, foreign pressure, and societal change collide. It reminds us that history is shaped not just by rulers and armies, but by ideas, innovation, and the relentless march of time. China would never return to imperial rule, but the legacy of the Qing, both its achievements and failures, continues to influence the country and the world more than a century later.